You know, kid, when you spend your whole life building something, brick by brick, handshake by handshake, you start to believe nothing can ever take it away from you. Not time, not mistakes, and certainly not family. But life's funny that way. It doesn't always attack you from the front. Sometimes it comes wearing your own last name. I returned from my business trip a day early. Didn't tell a soul. Wanted to surprise Maggie for our anniversary. 43 years together. I had the whole plan in my head. Dinner by the fire, her favorite flowers, maybe a little music. When I pulled into the driveway of our Connecticut estate, I saw every light in the house glowing. Music floated through the air, the sound of glasses clinking, voices laughing, celebrating. I smiled at first. Maybe Maggie had guests over. Maybe Jason, our boy, had come by. But as I stepped inside, briefcase by the marble entrance, that smile died. From the kitchen came the sound that would haunt me forever. Maggie, my Maggie, crying quietly over a pile of papers. Her hands trembled, tears fell on the pages. Legal documents scattered across the table. Signatures that looked like hers, but weren't. And from the living room, laughter, Jason's voice, Victoria's laugh, Frederick Mitchell's booming tone, the sound of men toasting victory. That's when I understood. Without hearing a single word, I knew. Let me take you back to the beginning, kid. Let me tell you how a carpenter's son built a $520 million empire, and how his own bloodline turned it into a weapon against him. I was Ed Whitman back then, Ed the Builder, they called me. Not just because I came from construction, but because I understood what most developers didn't. Real estate, it isn't about buildings. It's about trust. Every handshake, every promise, every deal you make with honor. That's what builds empires. 45 years ago, I had nothing but calloused hands and a second-hand toolbox that was worth more than my bank account. But I had Maggie, and that meant I had everything. We got married in 1980. Had $7,000 between us. She believed in me when no bank would. When the world laughed, she smiled and said, "We'll build it anyway." And we did. One project, one client, one sleepless night at a time. I built Whitman Development from the ground up, now the biggest private commercial real estate firm in New England. $520 million in assets, over 2,000 employees, and not a single deal ever made without my handshake on it. We had one son, Jason. Bright, handsome, Harvard MBA. The golden child. Everything I worked for him. I made him vice president at 28. Taught him everything, not just about business, but about integrity. At least I thought I did. Then came Victoria Mitchell. Beautiful, educated, polished. Her father, Frederick, was old Connecticut money, the kind of man who never really worked, just acquired. When Jason married her, I was proud. Thought he'd found someone who understood our world. Turns out she understood it too well. Frederick started calling me about 18 months ago. Friendly advice, he called it. Golf games. Whiskey nights. "Ed, you've built something remarkable," he'd say. "But have you thought about tax implications? Estate planning? Succession?" It sounded harmless, even wise. He offered mentorship, connections, insight. I'd built my life on trust, so I trusted him. Big mistake. Then Victoria began taking interest in the family finances. "Dad Whitman," she'd say sweetly, "I was just reviewing the quarterly reports. Maybe we should diversify some holdings for Maggie's long-term care." I saw no harm in it. After all, she was family now. Then came the diagnosis, early-stage Alzheimer's. Maggie took it bravely. Victoria was there, holding her hand. She said, "This is what family does. We take care of each other." And I believed her. That's how it started, small, subtle, the way all betrayals do. Jason began traveling more, networking with Frederick's connections. Victoria handled more paperwork. I was proud at first. My boy taking the reins. My daughter-in-law stepping up. But something didn't feel right. Conversations stopped when I entered rooms. Emails I didn't remember approving were being sent from my account. Maggie seemed more confused after every visit for Victoria. I brushed it off. You don't want to believe the worst of your own blood. But that Tuesday, when I came home early, I saw the truth with my own eyes. The papers on the kitchen table told the story. Corporate bylaw amendments filed while I was away. Proxy statements giving Jason and Victoria voting control over Whitman development. Transfers, 50,000 here, 75,000 there, adding up to $125 million. And every signature, Maggie's. Her hand had been guided, manipulated, forged, while she was too sick to know what she was signing. I felt my heart sink, not from the money, but from the betrayal. The laughter in the next room grew louder. They were celebrating the theft of everything I'd built, the exploitation of the woman I loved. That's when I made a decision. A quiet, cold, irreversible decision. They'd stolen my trust. So I would show them what happens when you steal from a man who built an empire out of nothing but grit and strategy. I picked up the phone and called Andrew Fleming, my general counsel and friend of 30 years. He answered immediately. "Ed, thought you were in Boston till tomorrow." "Andrew," I said quietly, "I need you at my house. Now, bring Rebecca Collins with you." Rebecca, his niece, a private investigator specializing in financial crimes. I'd helped her start her firm years ago. Never imagined she'd be saving me. As I waited for them to arrive, I started taking photos. The papers, the signatures, Maggie's tears. Every detail. Evidence. Because this wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a crime scene. You learn something after 45 years in business, kid. People can fake love, fake smiles, fake loyalty. But they can't fake patterns. Patterns always reveal the truth. And when the truth started to surface, I realized Frederick Mitchell hadn't just stolen from me. He'd orchestrated a hostile takeover of my entire life. Andrew arrived 30 minutes later. And with him came Rebecca. Sharp eyes, quiet steps, and the kind of calm that tells you she's seen monsters before. I met them at the door, finger to my lips. From next door, I could still hear laughter. Frederick's booming voice carried through the night air, my son laughing along. I led them into my study, the same room where I'd built every major deal of my career. Now it felt like a war room. Andrew spread the papers across my desk. He adjusted his glasses, read the first few lines, and went pale. "Jesus Christ, Ed," he whispered. "These are corporate bylaw amendments. They've transferred your voting rights." He flipped through more pages. Power of attorney. Maggie's signature on documents she clearly didn't understand. Bank authorizations. Asset transfers. This is organized fraud. Rebecca was already setting up her camera. Click. Flash. Click. Photographing every document, labeling them, building an evidence chain that could stand up in court. She looked up at me finally. "Mr. Whitman, how long has this been going on?" 18 months, I said quietly. 6 of them active theft. Her brow furrowed. "That's not amateur work. This is structured, deliberate. They've built a framework to make it look legitimate. Whoever planned this knew exactly how to exploit both corporate law and family ties." I nodded slowly. "Frederick Mitchell." Rebecca's fingers danced over her laptop. "I'll start pulling digital records. Emails, transfers, phone logs. If they used electronic communication, we'll find it." Andrew sighed, rubbing his temples. "Ed, I can get emergency court orders by morning, freeze the accounts, revoke power of attorney. But you need to understand, they'll fight back. They've got signatures, witnesses, even your own son on their side." "My former son," I said. He looked up, eyes searching mine. I didn't flinch. Rebecca's voice cut through the tension. "Let's focus on evidence. The more we uncover tonight, the less room they'll have to maneuver." We moved through the house, like detectives at midnight. Every room told a piece of the story. In Maggie's breakfast nook, she sat quietly, staring out the window. When I knelt beside her, she took my hand. "Eddie," she whispered. I tried to remember what I signed. "Victoria said it was insurance, something to protect you." Her voice trembled, but I couldn't remember afterward. Her tears hit my hand like fire. That's when I made another promise, this time not about building, but about destroying. In Jason's old bedroom, now Victoria's home office, Rebecca found the real treasure, a printed timeline to MY's schedule for the past 6 months. Business trips, board meetings, every movement tracked with military precision. Beside it, a folder labeled competency documentation. Rebecca hit play on a small recorder. Victoria's voice came through, soft and rehearsed. Mom Whitman, do you remember what day it is? Do you remember who the president is? Then Maggie's confused, halting reply, I'm not sure. Victoria again. It's okay, you signed some papers earlier. Do you remember what they were for? Maggie's voice broke. I don't remember. Rebecca looked at me. They were building a case, documenting confusion to prove legal incompetence. These recordings would hold in a guardianship hearing. My hand shook, not from fear, from rage. The kind of rage that burns cold. Next folder, petition for guardianship, Margaret Whitman. It was drafted, ready to file. The brief painted me as an aging husband in denial, emotionally unstable, mismanaging finances. They wanted Jason and Victoria appointed co-guardians, with full control over Maggie's medical and financial life. Rebecca exhaled sharply. This is elder abuse, identity theft, and corporate fraud, all rolled into one. Andrew's voice came from behind us, low and grim. They've already corrupted your inner circle, Ed. I spoke to my secretary. Jason delivered papers to my office yesterday. I thought you'd authorize them. I looked at him. They used you, Andrew. You were the stamp of legitimacy. He nodded, guilt heavy in his eyes. I won't make that mistake again. By 7 p.m., Rebecca had turned my dining table into an evidence board. Photos, documents, bank statements, all connected with color-coded notes. This started before their marriage, she said. Frederick's been planning this for years. He studied your business structure like a predator studies its prey. She clicked play on another recording. Phone audio between Frederick and an attorney. Frederick, the old man's operation is solid, but succession planning's amateur hour. No advanced trusts, no asset protection. The wife's got early dementia. Perfect angle. Attorney, what about the son? Frederick, pliable. Thinks he deserves control anyway. Just needs a push. Rebecca stopped the playback. They weren't just planning theft. They were engineering your downfall. She uncovered more. Hotel receipts from Jason's business trips. Each matched meetings arranged by Frederick. Strategy sessions with lawyers, accountants, private investigators. Emails between Victoria and her mother. Triggered another confusion episode today. Got her to sign the beneficiary updates while disoriented. She won't remember tomorrow. Caroline's reply. Perfect. Frederick says we're close to final phase. Rebecca's jaw tightened. This isn't family manipulation. This is organized crime in a designer suit. I stared at the Mitchell house through my window. Every light still on, their laughter still echoing. They think it's over, I said. They think they've already won. Andrew leaned forward. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, I turned to them, we don't call the police yet. We let them keep playing their game. The more rope I give them, the more they'll hang themselves. By 9:30, my study became a command center. Andrew sat across from me, scribbling legal notes. Rebecca typed nonstop, cross-referencing financial databases. I stood by the window, watching the Mitchell house glow like a beacon of arrogance. Phase 1, I said. Tomorrow morning, Andrew files emergency motions. Freeze every account. Void every transaction signed under duress. Use Maggie's medical diagnosis as grounds. He nodded. Judge Williams owes me a favor. We'll have restraining orders in place by noon. Good. Phase 2. Internal warfare. Emergency board meeting Thursday morning. Present evidence. Remove Jason from all positions. Initiate full forensic audit. Andrew hesitated. That's going to break him, Ed. He broke himself when he sold his mother's dignity. I said coldly. Rebecca looked up. And phase 3. I smiled for the first time that night. I give them what they want. They exchanged glances. I'll make a public announcement, I continued, that I'm stepping back due to Maggie's health. Jason will be promoted to Chief Operating Officer. Andrew frowned. That's madness. You be giving them control. No, I said. I'll be giving them rope. Every move Jason makes will be monitored, recorded, traced. Every conversation with Frederick logged. Every misuse of company funds documented. Rebecca smiled slowly. You're setting a trap. I nodded. The oldest kind. One built on pride and greed. I opened the safe behind my desk, The one no one but Maggie knew existed. Inside, sealed in an envelope, were the documents I'd hoped I'd never need. Project Fortress, I said. Andrew's eyes widened. You kept this all these years. 15 years ago, when Peterson tried a hostile takeover during the crash, I created a contingency, an advanced trust structure that could lock down every asset in 48 hours. Irrevocable. Bulletproof. He flipped through the pages, whistled softly. This is genius. You could reverse every unauthorized transfer, seize all assets, and leave them with nothing. Exactly. Rebecca leaned forward. What happens after they fall? I looked at the portrait of Maggie on the wall, her smile frozen in better days. Then, Rebecca, I said, voice steady, we remind the world what happens when you betray the man who built you. People think revenge is about rage. It's not. It's about balance. You take from me, I take back what's mine. Not with violence, not with shouting, but with precision. I built my empire with patience, integrity, and a memory like a steel trap. Now I'll dismantle theirs with the same tools. That night, as the laughter next door finally faded, I sat alone in my study. The rain tapped against the glass. Maggie slept upstairs, fragile and innocent in her confusion. I whispered to the dark, "You took my trust. Now I take your legacy." And that, kid, was the night the hunter stopped building and started hunting. Next up, part 3. The trap is set. Ed's public announcement, Jason's fake victory, the surveillance, and the slow, devastating unraveling of the Mitchell family. You know, when you've built your life one brick at a time, you start to understand the language of silence. And that night, when I came home early from my trip, the silence between the champagne laughter and my wife's tears said more than 1,000 words ever could. I didn't confront them right away. I let them celebrate their little victory, raise their glasses to the empire they thought they'd stolen. Because real power isn't loud. It's patient. That night, I sat in my study, the same room where Maggie and I'd signed our first mortgage, the same desk where every major deal began. And I realized the people I trusted most were already gone. The family I'd built had rotted from the inside, and love wasn't enough to fix it, but justice that I could still deliver. Over the next week, I did what any seasoned developer would do. I built something, not with concrete and steel this time, but with strategy and silence. I started by visiting my old attorney, Richard Hale, a man who'd handle my earliest land deeds, the kind of lawyer who reads every clause twice and keeps secrets like a priest. We spent 2 full days in his office, drafting documents I never thought I'd need. You see, a few months before Maggie's diagnosis, she and I had quietly updated our estate plan, something even Jason and Victoria didn't know. Every asset, the company shares, the trust, the properties, all of it was locked behind what I called the Founder's Clause. A legal safeguard that stated, if any transfer of ownership or power was found to be based on manipulation, coercion, or forgery, the assets would revert to the charitable trust in Maggie's name. Not to Jason, not to me, to the foundation that bore her name, the one she built to fund housing for single mothers. They thought they were playing chess, but they were sitting on my board, using my pieces. A week later, I invited everyone, Jason, Victoria, her father Frederick, our attorneys, and the board, to the main conference room at Whitman Development. Jason walked in confident, arm around Victoria, smiling like he already owned the place. Frederick's cufflinks gleamed like victory. "Dad," Jason said, "we thought you'd still be in Boston. We've, taken care of everything." "Oh, I know," I said, sliding a folder across the table. "You certainly have." Inside were copies of the forged documents. Every fake signature, every fraudulent transfer. And beneath them, certified statements from the notary and handwriting experts I'd hired quietly the day after I came home. The color drained from Victoria's face. Frederick tried to open his mouth, but I raised my hand. "Don't bother, Fred. I know the trust accounts, the offshore filings, the hidden transfers, all tied back to your firm. You played it beautifully, except you taught the wrong man how to play." Jason's voice cracked. "Dad, it's not what you think." I looked at him, my son. The boy I taught to ride a bike, to shake hands firmly, to build something that lasts. And I said quietly, "No, son. It's exactly what I think." Maggie's foundation now owned 92% of Whitman development. I transferred the shares that very morning. Every project, every building, every deal we ever built, no longer family-owned, but protected in her name. Jason and Victoria couldn't touch a cent. Victoria stood up furious. "You can't do this. The company belongs to the people who built it," I interrupted, "and to the woman who stood by me when I had nothing." She stormed out. Jason stayed seated, tears in his eyes. He didn't say a word as security escorted Frederick out of the building. Waited until the room was empty before finally exhaling. The kind of breath that feels like closing a chapter. That was 6 months ago. Maggie's health, it's fading faster than I hoped. Some days, she remembers the way I take my coffee. Other days, she looks at me like a kind stranger. But every time I visit her, she still smiles when I tell her the foundation is thriving, that single mothers are moving into homes bearing her name. And she always whispers, "That's my Ed, always building something good." Jason hasn't spoken to me since. But last week, I got a letter, handwritten. He said, "Dad, I finally understand what you built and what I almost destroyed. I'm sorry." Maybe that's enough. You know, people think revenge is about payback, about making someone suffer like you did. But when you've lived as long as I have, you learn that the real revenge is peace, the kind that comes when you protect what truly matters and walk away knowing you did right by the ones who stood by you. So if you're listening to this story, take it from an old man who built towers and lost families. Don't let greed rewrite your love story. Don't let ambition blind you to the people who'd sit beside you with nothing. Because the greatest empire you'll ever build isn't made of glass and steel. It's built from trust, love, and the hands that never let go, even when everything else does. And that, my friends, is how I won the last deal of my life.